First of all, a quick question on the energy price rises. The government has introduced its support package, which will shield people from its worst effects, won't it? And their package is going to be there to support people over the course of 2 years. Does Labour now stop and think that they should have committed to a bigger package? You're only offering support for 6 months, weren't you?
Well, firstly, it's good to join you this morning and just to say that the Labour Party argued for the energy price freeze. It is one positive that back in the early part of September, the government did follow where Labour led and finally introduced a freeze. What we did very responsibly back in August was to cost out the price of our freeze until the end of this particular financial year. But we were also clear that there would be longer term support as well. And we have also set out how we would create not just that energy security, but that long-term stability in energy prices. We announced at our party conference, not only would there be the insulation of 19 million homes, I'm astonished the government hasn't done it already over the past 12 years, but also Great British Energy, a publicly owned company that will now be able to drive forward the increases in renewables that we need to see, the doubling of onshore wind, the trebling of solar, the quadrupling of offshore wind. That is what the focus should be. The immediate help that we've argued for, but also that long-term stability that our economy and our energy market needs and that our people and businesses need, but I'm afraid has been put so at risk by this government's reckless approach to the economy with its recent budget.
Well, you say it's a reckless approach to the economy. We have had the Prime Minister Liz Truss today acknowledging there had been some disruption in the aftermath of the mini-budget, but she said that they had a good plan for growth and we need to give it time, essentially. Meanwhile, the Chancellor has also written in the Daily Telegraph today talking about saying that November's statement will include a credible plan to get public finances back on track, talking about a commitment to spending discipline. Do you feel that the government has now tied everything up, has answered a lot of the questions around the mini-budget?
No, absolutely not. And even in that answer, they seem to be saying, we have a plan, but we're not going to show it to you for 2 months. They're in, I'm afraid, a dreadful position. This is a Tory crisis made in Downing Street, and working people are going to pay the price. And they've crashed the economy by handing out enormous unfunded tax cuts to the very wealthiest people. And it's going to be working people across the country who pay the price of this. They've also trashed our international reputation. The IMF, for example, expressing concerns about the government's plans. The former governor of the Bank of England expressing concern about this government's undermining of our financial institutions. And I'm afraid what the government has done is going to lead to economic pain for people that they have chosen, whether it's the higher prices, the higher mortgage rates we've already been heard about. So what the government needs to do is recall Parliament and withdraw this budget.
What about the OBR forecasts? As you hinted there, they will now come out at the end of November. This is the independent watchdog that assesses budgets. Will Labour try and get that published earlier? I understand that there's an arcane parliamentary device called a humble address. Will you use that to try to get that published sooner than the end of November?
Well, we will work across parties at what may be the best way to put pressure on the government to actually publish that. But just think carefully about what we're saying here. We would be pressing for the government to publish something that previous governments have simply published and as a matter of course. The OBR's independent assessment of budgets has become a central part of what we do, and the government is running away from it. We talk about opposition parties needing to use devices to force this, but the question is, what on earth is the government afraid of? The government could actually publish it, and if they did that and it contained something that made their plan look credible, it would help reassure the markets. But my suspicion, I'm afraid, is it's because of their reckless approach that they don't want anybody to see it.
You say you're working across parties to try to get the government to come forward with this OBR report. What about talking to Tory MPs? Are you talking to them about that? Are you talking to them about scrapping certain tax cuts?
Well, I'm not privy to any discussions that have gone on with Conservative backbenchers, but I'm not surprised really to read the reports that we have seen about this, because what the government is doing is focusing on taking away the 45 pence top rate of income tax, benefiting a very small number of people on the very highest incomes. They're taking away the cap on bankers' bonuses, whilst it's working people who are paying the price. So I'm not surprised that there are MPs who may be wishing to speak even from the government benches on this, because what the government has done is, by prioritising that tiny group of very wealthy people and wealthy companies, trying to rely on failed trickle-down economics, we know that millions of families across the country will be paying the price for it. They should actually change course and come back to Parliament, in fact.